The Home World: Friendly Counsels for Homekeeping Hearts by Frances X. Doyle, S.J. Chapter 3: Building the Home. Home is the center of our influence. Here we must meet those who are nearest and dearest to us and shape their lives for better or worse. Here in the home is erected the altar of the best human love. Home, said a certain Jesuit, means the bonds of blood and ties of tenderness which clasp into one close intimacy the hearts of those who, hand in hand, journey heavenward. Home is the moral circle within which minds and hearts share the same shelter, breathe the same atmosphere, bear the same burdens, sympathize in the same sorrows, enjoy the same pleasures, divide the same toils, and contribute to the same success. Building this home is very important. If your life were but a fever fit, the madness of a night whose follies were all to be forgotten in the dawn, it might matter little how you fretted away the sickly hours, what toys you snatched at or let fall, what visions you followed wistfully with the deceived eyes of sleepless frenzy. But your life is bound up with others. You are creating a world, and you are not God. When your parent nest has grown too small for you, and your heart begins to sigh after your own home, as dear a home too as the one you leave, then it is necessary to look for the firmest foundation on which to create your world. And be not afraid to speak of your hopes and your love. Today this silence is harmful, a real bane on family life. Love is not merely a rhyme for dove. Love is not a thing to hide in shame. Let no one sneer you into blush for your honest affection. Father Cain speaks bluntly on this matter of love's young dream. Do not misunderstand, do not misjudge the noblest instinct of human life. Alas, alas! There is nothing true, nothing good, nothing noble, nothing beautiful in human life that has not its caricature. There is nothing lovable that is not exposed to the sneer of the conceited cynic, or to the laughter of the vulgar fool. What is most sacred in its majesty may, by a cunning buffoon, be made to look grotesque. What is most exquisite in its simplicity may appear contemptible in the eyes of a stupid student. Thus even love has been warped into meaning either what in human idiocy is most silly, or what in human brutishness is most foul. Of such meanings I do not speak. I do not speak of love that is false. I speak of love that is true. What then is to be the foundation of your home world, the sustainer of love's altar, the material expression of your rosy dream? Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain that builds it. This is from Psalm 126. Here is a direct, positive answer. The Lord is your home's foundation, and if you build your love on Him, you will build higher than the Tower of Babel, for you will really reach divinity in His own home. You will touch the beauty of the sky and lift up by your influence many, many souls to look into God's face. The Jews had been building the great temple of God and became discouraged when the neighboring nations obstructed the work. Then the Holy Spirit reminded them that the works of man are nothing unless God has the first place. It is God who helps the builders, God who actually builds, and the house is God's after it is built. Trust in God if you want to lay the foundations of your home strongly. Pray to Him with your whole heart and work as if the whole house depended on your own individual efforts. Then your home will be a beautiful thing, mighty, massive, and majestic, resting secure as a mountain on its base in the hand of God. Whose finger set the sun and moon and stars in the heavens? Whose hand holds up the skies? Whose arm is the firm support of the earth? Who wears the jeweled heavens on his finger, even as you wear your ring? Can you doubt that he will hold up your home if you build it on him? Indeed, we must build on God and for God. Even though we seem to live in a world all our own, set aside from spheres inhabited by other mortals, we are not in reality alone, for there ever rests with us the obligation of building our home for God in the center of our hearts. This is a loftier building than the dwelling place physical, for it must be made to welcome none other than the God for whom the universe is small, whom the doors of heaven welcome only by lifting up the gates. We cannot welcome him or ask his help in building our homes unless we have stripped self of all its mean, arbitrary, and senseless demands. This majestic dweller, this guest, must have the whole place for himself, since it is said that he is a jealous God. If our hearts are to be the inn where God takes his rest, we must scour it and cleanse it and furnish it, furbish it, and yet again purify it, till self is not even a speck of dust on the glittering bright walls. So this matter of building a home on God demands the building of a home for God in our hearts. And see how much we gain by welcoming God into our souls. We exchange the world for its maker, the toy for the designer, the tinsel for the gold. By bringing him into our homes, we bring love into our hearts, pleasure into our lives, and the trifling loss of earthly pleasures will not even be felt when we greet this guest, look into his eyes, and suddenly discover there the source of all beauty, all pleasure, all happiness. This is the home of the heart, and God is waiting for each one to build it. And just as you are anxious about the material home which will house your loved ones, and decide at last that the only safe foundation is God himself, so you will find that the interior home of your own heart must first shelter God. We are imbued with a good quality, American resourcefulness. If we start something, we see it through. This is good, for it implies firm purpose, resolute will, and the mastership of difficulties. But there is also the danger that we may build our work on ourselves. Analyze yourself, and you must come to the sad conclusion that you are dust. Now, dust is a wavering foundation, and be American in your hard-headed business sense and realize that a dust foundation never yet made a happy home. Too many homes are built on dust. Too many families work alone, as if there were no God. They waste their strength. They are pouring into their hearts the bitterness of future tears. Let the one who built the lily and clothed it more beautifully than Solomon, let him have a hand in the house with your children, your friends. If he knows how to build a tree, he will know how to help you in the fabric of your home. If he can make a blade of grass grow, create an angel, make out of nothing a creature like the Blessed Virgin Mary, he is worthwhile having in the house. The world is God's, and you cannot get rid of him. Suppose you do not call on God's help in caring for your home. What will you do by yourself? Have you seen a man rake dry autumn leaves into a heap and set a match to them? Have you watched the sudden bright glow, the leap of the flame, the swift destruction? And look intently at the insignificant heap of charred leaves, a hillock of dust for the winds to sport with. That is what a man does when he attempts anything without God. He builds a sad, gray ruin for a tramp wind to whistle through. The sandy beach at Atlantic City is a delight to the eye. There is hardness to it, a firmness which does not show your footprint. Indeed, there would be no poetical sands of time at Atlantic City. How would you dare build your house, even on that sand? Watch the child scoop up a bucket of the loose stuff, for that is just what the sand on that magnificent beach is, loose stuff, but a lot of it together. A pillar of sand will not support itself. Would you build your home on it? And then walk along the beach and look out at the waves. Hear the roar and thunder of their fall. See the menace of their sullen rise. See the barred white fangs of the spray as the waters curl high and leap at the shore. See how the surf licks up the sand, grinds it ravenously, and swallows it. Listen to the foul hissing as the waves slink back into the deep. Suppose you built your home there, on that fine beach. Where would it be now? Yet that is what you do when you build your home on your children's character or anything else without God. You build on a pillar of loose sand in sight of the sea devil's open mouth, with his white fangs grinning expectantly. Without God, you can do nothing. And this should be remembered when the home world is sunny or sad. Who but God can help you bear the grief of loneliness when you come home from the graveyard and sit down in that darkened room, yearning for the one who will come no more into your little world? You go through the house and see the rocking chair she preferred. You come suddenly on her sewing basket. The needles are so idle now. Her swift, graceful fingers are strangely still and stiff. No more will they engage in the homely work of mending or making. Sometimes you can hear her steps on the stairs. You call out her name, forgetting that her ears are filled with dust. When the night comes and you sit at the table alone, you may fall into a doze and awake suddenly, thinking you see her looking at you. But her eyes are filled with dust. Sometimes she sang carelessly as she worked about your home world, and now perhaps you hear the echo of her tones. Listen, is not that her voice echoing through the upper rooms? Can't you hear it? The same song you are so fond of? But you know that her mouth is filled with dust, and no more will brighten your home world again. Then it is nice to sit down and think that you and she built your home on God. You did not work by yourselves, though you worked so hard together. God was your support then, and he is holding her in his hand now. You know that she does not wish to come back to you, for when she has seen God, all her soul is flooded with peace. She has at last gone into the home world for which we are all destined, and if we do not reach it at last, we have built in vain. St. Paul urged the Corinthians to build on God. Quote, "You are the house of God," he told them, and that means that you are built by God, on God, and God dwells in you. He made you his home. St. Paul adds, "As a wise architect, I have laid the foundation, but another builds." Unquote. Now we know that if the chief architect of the great universe is absent from the planning and the actual building, then men build in vain, be they Corinthians of an age gone into the maw of time, or resourceful Americans leaping into the marvelous future. St. Matthew tells us who this great chief architect is. Quote, "Upon this rock I will build my church," and said Christ to Peter. And if we learn from him, we will build on the rock of Peter and of Christ. With God for the foundation, your home will stand up against any storm that blows. An earthquake may rock the world as your hand rocks the cradle. Your home will not tremble. Fire, water, wind, and wave may hiss, pound, shriek, and rumble against your cottage walls. That cottage is your castle, and nothing will break it down. You read of huge, impregnable fortresses crumpled up during the war by siege guns, built to knock them into heaps of broken stone and distorted steel. No gun will ever be built to knock your home into a hapless mass of ruins. If your home is built on God. This is splendid practical advice to the young married man planning his home. Deny yourself all superfluities and all luxuries until you can say, "Everything in this house is mine, thank God. Every timber, every brick, every foot of plumbing, every door sill." Do not have your children born in a boarding house. Do not yourself be buried from one. Have a place where your children can shout and sing and romp without being overhauled for their racket. Have a kitchen where you can do something toward the reformation of evil cookery and the lessening of this nation of dyspeptics. As Napoleon lost one of his great battles by an attack of indigestion, so many men have such a daily wrestle with the food swallowed that they have no strength left for the battle of life. And in building your home, it is well to recall what Ruskin said, quote, "The one point you may be assured of is this, that your happiness does not at all depend on the size of your house, but depends entirely on your having peaceful and safe possession of it, on your habits of keeping it clean and in order, on the material of it being trustworthy, if they are no more than stone and turf, and on your contentment with it, so that gradually you may mend it to your mind day by day, and leave it to your children a better house than it was. To your children and to theirs, desiring for them that they may live as you have lived, and not strive to forget you, and stammer when anyone asks who you were, because, forsooth, they have become fine folks by your help." You will like this reflection of the poet Southey, that a house is never perfectly furnished for enjoyment unless there is in it a child rising 3 years old and a kitten rising 3 weeks old. The more womanly a woman is, says a writer on home affairs, the more she is sure to throw her personality over her home, and transform it from a mere eating and sleeping place, or an upholsterer's showroom, into a sort of outmost garment of her soul. Finally, when the home is built, the woman should remember that it is a woman and only a woman all by herself, if she likes, and without any man to help her, who can turn a house into a home. And if the building of the house depends so much on the man to make the house a home, it seems to me to be the peculiar gift of the woman. And yet it would seem that the woman is mentioned is not so much the husband's wife as the mother of his children. Yes, and mothering the poor man too, since by himself he has a tendency toward barbarism and savagery. Man would never build a house if he had no woman or child for whom to build it. That is the end of chapter 3.